All right, if you work in any highly regulated industry, you know this struggle. We all face this fundamental challenge, right? How do you take these incredibly complex, dense, written procedures and actually turn them into skills people can use on the job? It's that classic gap between knowing something and actually doing it. So let me ask you a question, and it's a big one. What if those procedures could teach themselves? I mean, really think about that. What if the very documents that define your processes could transform into their own teachers? Imagine an SOP that doesn't just sit there collecting dust, but actually actively trains your team. And here's the kicker. This isn't some far-off future possibility. We're going to dive into how this is happening right now. Okay, but before we jump into the solution, let's back up a second. We need to start with the world we all know and, well, maybe don't love. I'm talking about a world completely run by these super complex, controlled documents. And honestly, this is where the whole problem starts. Because way too often, this is exactly where all that critical knowledge gets trapped. Right, we're talking about controlled documents. In these industries, they are the source of truth. Your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, they're the literal backbone of your entire operation. These aren't just friendly suggestions, They are the required guides for every single critical process. It's all about ensuring safety, quality, and of course, compliance. And, behind every single one of these documents, there's this hidden layer of insane complexity. Each one basically has a life of its own. It goes through a whole life cycle, right? From draft to review to finally getting approved. And every single step is governed by these super rigid workflows. You've got tasks, notifications, audit trails. It's a mountain of procedural overhead. Now, it's all designed to ensure control, which is great, but the side effect? It traps all that vital knowledge in a static, locked-down format. Okay, so we've got this super complex, tightly controlled system. But what happens when our main way of training people on these critical documents is just a simple read and understand task? I think we all know the answer. The consequences are, frankly, severe. And trust me, they cost a lot more than you probably think. See, the thing is, bad training isn't just a one-off problem. It's more like the first domino to fall in a long, dangerous chain reaction. It starts a ripple effect, it leads to misunderstandings, which then lead to deviations, and that triggers a whole investigation. And it all goes back to that one single point of failure, not being able to translate words on a page into real, actual understanding. And when you actually dig into the data, the main culprit becomes, well, crystal clear. So what is the #1 reported root cause for all these expensive deviations? Get this, it's human error. Not people trying to cause problems, not faulty equipment, just simple, preventable human error. And where does it come from? That same gap in understanding the procedure. So let's talk numbers. What's the price tag for just one of these deviations? We're talking anywhere from $25,000 to $55,000. Let that sink in for a second. That's the direct hard cost of one person, one time, misunderstanding a procedure. And believe it or not, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because that direct cost, that's only where it starts. The hidden costs are arguably even more damaging. Think about it. You're pulling your most experienced people away from their real jobs to go investigate problems that shouldn't have happened in the first place. You're pouring time and money into retraining, often using the exact same read and understand method that failed before. The end result? It's just a massive drain on productivity for the entire team. Okay, so I think we've established the problem pretty clearly. The old way is expensive, it's risky, and let's be honest, it just doesn't work very well. But here's the good news. Technology now gives us a completely new way to unlock all that knowledge that's been trapped inside those documents. And this is the moment where the game completely changes. Seriously, just imagine this. You take that dense 40-page SOP, that boring old static PDF, and with one click, you watch an AI transform it into a visually engaging, interactive training course. Automatically. That is the kind of leap forward we're talking about. So here's the bottom line. We have got to move past just passive instruction. The solution isn't to make people read harder. That's never going to work. It's all about creating active visual learning experiences. The kind of training that doesn't just get a check mark next to it, but actually makes the knowledge stick in your brain. Now, I know this might sound a little bit like science fiction, but the process is actually surprisingly simple. So let's break down exactly how this AI makes it all happen. It really just comes down to 3 easy steps. Step 1, you import your document. Any SOP, any policy, any procedure you've already got. Step 2, the AI does its magic.
It analyzes all that text and automatically creates engaging slides, a professional voiceover, and even little quizzes to check for understanding. And finally, step 3. You deploy it. You can assign it through your LMS or QMS like you normally would, or hey, even stick a QR code right on a machine on the shop floor for instant, on-the-spot training.
Okay, now for anyone listening who works in a regulated space, this next part is probably the most important thing I'm going to say. This new, faster process does not skip compliance. In fact, it's built for compliance. It maintains full GxP compliance, the good practice guidelines that are so critical. You still get complete version control, full audit trails, and all the tough approval workflows you already depend on. The big win here is you get speed without giving up an ounce of control. So that's the how. But what about this so what, right? Let's talk about the real measurable results. What actually happens when you start training people this way? All right, let's start with a huge number. 75%. That's a 75% reduction in defects and human errors. Now, just think back to that $55,000 price tag per deviation we talked about. This isn't just a small improvement. This is a direct, massive impact on the bottom line. It's a game changer. Okay, but the big question is, does the knowledge actually stick? Well, the data is pretty clear. Yes. Learners show 3 times the knowledge retention compared to just reading a boring document. And what that really means is people aren't just glancing at the procedure anymore. They actually understand it, and more importantly, they remember it. And last but not least, let's talk about pure efficiency. This new approach slashes the overall time you spend on training by 65%. Just think for a minute about what that really means. Your teams get compliant way faster. Your new hires are productive sooner. And maybe best of all, your top experts are freed up from doing repetitive training so they can focus on the work that actually moves the needle. So at the end of the day, it really all comes down to this. The companies that win in the future, they're not going to be the ones with the most documents. They'll be the ones who can take all that overwhelming complexity and turn it into instant clarity. So I'll leave you with this final thought. How are you going to make your knowledge instantly understood, visually engaging, and available to everyone who needs it at scale?